Your reaction when you found out?
A bit of surprise, actually, I guess. Yeah, certainly wasn't expecting to receive the nomination, although it is very humbling to receive it. But I suppose I watched a few of the other games on the weekend and probably thought it was probably the other couple of guys who were more deserving. But yeah, no, still fantastic to receive the award all the same.
Did you play better than you on the weekend?
Well, I actually watched the Hawthorn Gold Coast game and I saw Stephen May tear it up forward, so I thought he would have been a dead set chance. And also watched Jordan Murdoch, who I played with at Gwinnell last year, and I thought he played very well for Geelong on the weekend as well. So, yeah, obviously sort of stiff competition.
Probably a little bit to do with your consistent year as well, I would think.
I guess so. Yeah, I'm not too sure what the sort of criteria is for the selection process, but yeah, I assume that might have been the case.
Surprised at establishing yourself in the senior side this year after 2 tough years?
Yeah, definitely. Look, it was always an aim throughout the pre-season that yeah, it was definitely a goal of mine to sort of cement myself in the side. Although yeah, it was I suppose one of the last goals I set to achieve. Whereas I started out just wanting to get through the pre-season more than anything because that was something I hadn't been able to achieve in the first 2 years. So yeah, I suppose this has almost been a bit of a final reward for a fair bit of hard work that's gone into the last sort of 12 to 24 months.
Sam, does it give you a little, I suppose, a nod of recognition to boost your confidence going into a final series, knowing you have some big names to stand during that time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've obviously got to focus on the next 2 games first, but yeah, leading up into the finals, we'll be certainly playing some top sides. So I think the main thing for me is just being able to get some consistency in terms of playing. Getting regular games has probably been more key for getting a bit more self-belief in my own performance.
Are you starting to feel pretty comfortable at the level now?
Starting to. I feel sort of week by week I'm sort of learning new things, and I've still got sort of plenty in my game that still needs to be developed. And I suppose I've got no illusions of where I'm at with my career. I've only played 10 games now, so it's yeah, still got a very sort of long journey to go, and yeah, got to continue to improve and develop.
Mark Rasciuto in the paper today said that the side was looking a little bit tired and should rest anything up to 5 players for each of the last 2 games. Do you think the side is tired, and do some players maybe need a rest?
I don't think so. Look, based on the environment we've had over the last few weeks, everyone seems very sort of enthusiastic and full of energy. So based on our training sessions and I suppose everything else as well, I wouldn't have sort of thought that or suggested that. I think just based on obviously the weekend's performance, it was probably just a fact of sort of going away from our structures, and it really sort of cost us in the end, I guess. Sort of obviously having such a solid first quarter and probably really just putting the foot off the gas. But it's something we've addressed over the last 24 hours, and yeah, it's something that hopefully we don't do again.
How do you feel physically, given it's probably the most your body's been put through in a year?
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is certainly the most games I've played in a year for the last, well, I suppose in terms of my senior footy. So yeah, my body does sort of feel it a bit, and it's just something that I sort of have to maintain and look after week by week. But no, I'm feeling quite good at the moment anyway. So.
How much did that footy hurt when it hit you in the eye?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah, no, it was quite sore actually. I sort of couldn't really see for the rest of that day really, I guess, out through my left eye. Sort of had partial vision in that area, and it was actually not too bad sort of previously after it, but having seen the specialist, I had a bit of blood hemorrhaging around the back and the side, so I just had to let that settle down just in case if I was to exercise and get my blood pressure up again, there was a chance of causing more blood vessels to burst and could potentially lose my eyesight. So I was sort of keen to play that weekend, but when I sort of heard that news, it was yeah, sort of took a step back and sort of happy to have a weekend off, I guess, just to get it right.
So when you're saying about addressing those issues about what happened in Brisbane in the past 24 hours, what did you conclude were the real issues?
It seemed to be more of a communication thing more than anything. We sort of went through a fair bit of footage just based on just more structure-based issues that we needed to fix up more than anything. And it was surprising. It's really something that I haven't really seen throughout this year. So it just seemed to be a bit of a sort of drop in our mentality, I guess. And once sort of Brisbane got a bit of a roll on, we weren't able to sort of flick the switch back on. I guess it just goes to show that you can't flick off for any team whatsoever. You just have to be sort of playing at 100% through the whole game, because if you sort of let them get back into the game, they can just the momentum really kills you.
When you talk about structures, the key one is about what's happening around stoppage. Is it because what you're not doing anymore, or is it because the other teams are now crowding you around stoppages?
No, certainly not. I mean, obviously, there's been a huge emphasis on our contested ball this year, and we still sort of find that as a focal point. And that was probably something that we went away with over the weekend. It was more so just based on our, I suppose, our numbers ahead of the ball and numbers around the ball.
Do you guys feel settled in defence?
I think so. Yeah, we've had a pretty sort of structured backline over the last season, really, I guess. It's been certainly fantastic to have a bit more youth come in, I suppose, with myself and Luke Brown as well, getting a couple games over the last few weeks. But having also the experience of Ben Rutten and Michael Dowdy certainly helps.
But it seems like the team changes every week. How unsettling is that?
I don't find it too unsettling. I mean, every team goes through the same thing as well. I mean, you have issues with form and issues with injury. I find it hard to believe a team, I suppose, at this stage of the year to be sort of have a set 22 week in, week out.
How's his leg going on?
Oh, look, Dan will be fine. Look, he's probably, I suppose, one of the most professional guys at the club in terms of looking after his injuries. Obviously got a bit of a knock on his quad, which was sort of a similar spot to what he'd had a few weeks before when we played Geelong. And we actually had a shorter turnaround in that week, and he got up okay. So, got full confidence in Daniel to play this weekend.
Did you guys just take it for granted at quarter time? Was that the risk always of playing Brisbane?
No, I don't.
Just going to bring in this sort of mentality that it was a slow lead into the finals?
No, we certainly didn't take it for granted. I mean, we initially came out, we really wanted to get a step on in the first quarter, and which we did achieve, but it was more so a fact that we probably went away with, we didn't sort of look past that in the first quarter. It wasn't a fact that we just sort of took it for granted. It was probably the fact that we sort of, the intensity dropped off a little bit and we allowed Brisbane to essentially get back into the game. But having said that, as I said before, it's something you just can't do. And as you said, we're playing Melbourne and Gold Coast this week, and they're certainly next week, and they're certainly the focus going forward. We're certainly not looking at finals at this stage. We need to, I suppose, come in with a full intensity over the next 2 weeks and address those issues.
Can you explain how that could happen?
Well, it's hard. I mean, when you've got 22 guys out there, you've got to have, everyone sort of playing their role. And once you sort of have a couple guys drop off, it can be a bit infectious throughout the whole team. But it's a hard thing to explain at times. Sometimes you can't really address it out there because you're not entirely sure as what's going on out in the field. So sometimes it takes until you sort of, I suppose, see the replay of the game or pick out certain parts of the game before you can really address it.
So do you think it was just a case of switching off?
No, I don't. Not in terms of just switching off, but I think we sort of allowed Brisbane to get back into the game, and it was just an issue with us being able to, I suppose, stop their momentum. And in terms of our structures being set up, it wasn't so much switching off, but just being unable to set up properly.
The one line the guys, particularly Brendan Sanderson, used after the Essendon win was that was to give confidence to the guys that even if they weren't playing well, they could actually grind out a win. Then it doesn't happen against Brisbane. So why couldn't you delve into that well? Maybe it wasn't what you thought the Essendon game was about in the end?
No, that was certainly probably how we felt it was with the Essendon game. It just seemed to be a bit more of a one-off, I think. And as you said, we've really prided ourselves, I suppose, on this year of being able to grind out games. And when the games have been close, that we've usually come out on top. And this just happened to be one game where I suppose we weren't able to get the result we were after.
So with that history of the Bulldogs, I think Essendon and a few other games where you were able to run over the top, do you think maybe there was a feeling that it might just happen for you in the last quarter?
Not so much a feeling as such, probably more of a belief, I guess. But I think that's probably more of a confidence thing within ourselves that we feel that we can get over the top. Obviously on the weekend we were unable to. But I think it's good that we're able to have such self-belief and that we're able to sort of get that done within those sort of close games, which is something that in the past we were probably unable to do over the last 2 or 3 years.
Did you see the footage last night of Scott Thompson's moment on the bench when he threw the phone down?
No, I haven't seen it, sorry.
So how did Brenton deal with you after the game?
He didn't actually address us as a team after the game. No, we just had our team meeting yesterday, so we went through the game yesterday morning.
His attitude?
Obviously a bit disappointed, as we all were, I guess. But yeah, we addressed things that were probably needed to be addressed, I guess, and there was a couple of sort of embarrassing clips that we sort of went through. But we've certainly got our heads up high, and we're just focusing on this week, I guess, and looking forward to playing Melbourne.
So you just happy to point the finger at a few people for errors?
No. The whole team's taking responsibility for the performance. It certainly doesn't come down to one or two individuals. It's a team game, so there's 22 guys out there, and everyone needs to sort of play their role. And it wasn't a case of just one or two guys making errors. I mean, we all did at some parts throughout the game. It was just uncharacteristic, I suppose, of the team.
Thanks, Will. Cheers, Nike.